Everyone, welcome to another episode of Chasing Aliens with the Mercedes W12 Formula One car. This week, the iRacing Grand Prix Series and Grand Prix Series fixed setup is going to be racing at my home track, Circuit of the Americas. Um, no tour race this week because the real Formula One Series is still in their summer break. That the tour race at this track won't be until October. Um, so yeah, this for some reason this track tends to not be very popular with the member base. I assume it's mostly because either everybody's on single screens and they can't see half the apexes, or if just simply it's a tough track that requires a lot of practice to really get a good grip on. Um, but that said, and it's unfortunate because it's actually a really fun track. Once you get the hang of it, um, it's a real good challenge and a blast to get around. We ran here last year in this series, except with the McLaren F1 car. That was my first time racing here on the service, and it happened to fall during the Project Alien competition. So, with a little bit of help, I was able to really get this track nailed down and had a really good run. So, like I said, hopefully this video series will help some of y'all get up to speed a little faster and maybe get some of y'all to enjoy the place as much as I do. We'll be going up against the best lap time ghost car that Soelio put up. His lap was a 133 391 in similar weather conditions, similar track conditions. And then also this week, he set his lap with the driver setup from Major's Garage, which is what I'm going to be using. So um, we'll see what we can do against him. It took a little bit of work for me to get some pace here, but we'll cover that a bit during the laps, and we'll go over some things here at the end as far as what it took for me to try to get up to his level, or at least get close. So before we get going on that, just if you like this content, if you feel like if it's helpful for you, be sure to like the videos on my channel and the Majors Garage YouTube channel. And if you want to see more of it, be sure to subscribe to one or both channels. So let's get started. Alright, so coming through this last corner here and onto the main straight, getting ready to start the lap. See the ghost pop up there in front. So again, I'm just a little itty bitty bit through this into this first turn. The biggest thing I noticed there is it seems like he takes a wider line through that corner compared to me clipping the apex curbing with the left sides. And then through here in the S's, he's running, it seems like he runs wide open, whereas I kind of give it a little bit of a lift just to make sure I make it through safely. Our gear selection is also just a little bit different throughout the lap. So we get into here, again, looks like he kind of takes a little bit later turn in and then straightens it out more. I tried to hit the apex and completely missed it. But still, keeping a good distance, about 2/10 back. And again, another tight hairpin corner. This time he actually clips the apex, similar to how I just did it. However, I seem to lose a little bit of speed through there. Come through this complex here, which is where I and probably most other people struggle. I turned in a little too much, I think, watching his car. His apex is a little bit later at that corner. Through this fast section here, wide open all day, maybe until the tires wear. Gain a little bit of ground on him in the second last turn, and then here we are in the final corner, and I lose it all back. But still, all in all, fairly respectable lap, just a few tenths off. Certainly more time to find, but that'll come with more laps on track. Alright, so let's get into the Hotlap Breakdown. So first things first that I want to point out is this track is notoriously strict on off tracks. It seems like and the reason for that is because this track does not have the new system that a lot of the F1 tracks have now, where you can put four wheels off in certain corners and it not trigger the 1X. As you can see, there is no rule tab video down here. Let me turn the webcam and overlay off. You can see there's no rule tab down here where it should be on those tracks that have the new off-track system. Hopefully that gets updated in this next season build, since it's going to be on the tour schedule in October, and it's going to be really hard to make like 60, 50, 60 laps or however long it is, and not hit 17x at least once. You're really going to have to underdrive the place in order to pull that off. So anyway, so as we're coming off of this last corner onto the main straight, you can see there's a DRS zone here. There's 2 on this track. Head down here into turn 1, big wide entry. So I noticed that Soilio seems to brake right before this. I can get my cursor to play right. Right here, right before the white line. I might be braking slightly early, but from what I remember on telemetry, we're pretty close. What I did notice, it was a big difference here, is that he seems to take this corner a little wider out this way. It may be that he's taking I believe it's the ideal racing line. There's like a geometric racing line and an ideal racing line. I think he takes the ideal racing line, where you basically try to straighten your exit more. Anyway, I tend to cut this and try to hit the apex curbing right here. In the past with the McLaren, that car would get really unsettled if you tried to do that. So it seemed like the better route was to kind of arc a little bit more. With this car, I think because of the wider physical stance that it has, it seems to be more stable through here. So it's not quite as dangerous to do that, I think. And I gained on him a bit through here, but then I lost some on exit. So that's something I'm going to be playing with a bit, is this wider line that he seemed to take. Try to straighten out that exit more, so that way I don't have issues later. Don't end up don't lose so much time on the exit of the corner and then the run down to the S's. Just be careful of getting the tires up on this curb here, because that's a bigger curb than it looks, a lot steeper, and it's going to unsettle the car pretty majorly. And also, I've been trying to run this in third gear. Sometimes I forget and downshift too many times. I think for my driving style, I think third gear is probably going to be better, and that seems to be what the Mercedes drivers did in real life last year. However, second gets you a little bit more engine braking and allows more of that rotation. So just to me, second feels like it's a little too high in the RPM range at that point. Yeah, so it really kind of depends on how you take the corner as to which gear is going to be better for you. So keep a tight line here on the right, and then this section here, like I said, Soilio seems to take this wide open. I tried to take as much of it wide open as I could, but after this, as you can see, after the second right-hander, I'm cracking the throttle a bit and rolling out of it. It's probably a bit slower. Obviously, anytime you let out the gas, the car slows down. However, I think in a race scenario, especially when we do the tour race in October, you're on full fuel, you're gonna want to lift through here, because especially with a full fuel load, the car's probably not gonna stick to the pavement very well. Trying to run that wide open, but even in the open series fuel, the 50% race fuel, the car can kind of, it seems the rear end tries to snap on me periodically when I go through here wide open, or I miss an apex by a half inch and the car understeers really bad through the next part of the S's. So for me, it's safer, probably nicer on the tires, to just kind of give it a little bit of a lift, maybe 90% throttle through this, the second 2/3, or through the last 2/3 of that section. Like I said, it's probably a little bit slower. Upside, though, is that you will be saving a bit of ERS along with your tires um, in order to get through this section like that. So it'll help you on the run down to the next straightaway. So anyway, through this right-hander here, I dropped a sixth, kind of let it kind of angle out a bit and then bring it back to the right because you really want to try to get up onto the right here to set yourself up for the left-hander over here. And I'm trying my best not to talk with my hands and talk with the cursor. Um, apex it there. This corner, I tend to overdrive it too much, so I braked a little earlier this time, I think, than normal, just to try to make sure I make it. You can take a good chunk of this curb without getting 1x. I think um, once the left sides once the half of the car gets over this white line here, I think that's when you trigger the off track. So, just be careful with that. I believe Suelio runs through here in 5th gear. I drop to 4th, get the extra engine braking and acceleration out of this corner. Keep it about half throttle. Make sure to clip that apex, and then once the car gets settled, go full throttle through here. Because this is a blind corner with the elevation change, it's easy to clip the off track here, so just kind of keep it a little wider than you think you need to. So that way you don't get an unnecessary off track. And then here, brake, what is that, 100 right there? So I'd say about 70, at the 70 meter mark. Start getting on the brakes, brake hard, and then get it turned. I had been typically hitting this apex, and if I kind of missed it on this run, but had I hit it, again, same thing with turn 1, just barely clip the edge here so it doesn't unsettle the car, and then track out to the curb over here. I took this in 2nd. I believe he takes it in 3rd. So again, different ways to skin that particular cat. I think 3rd will give you better acceleration just because you don't have to be as gentle. It won't spin up the tires as easily as 2nd gear will. And again, just be careful of, even though you want to take as much of this as you can to widen that exit, there is an off track here, so just be mindful of that and try to avoid that in the future. 2nd DRS zone, we're going to skip ahead and then on to turn 12. I start braking here probably about the 75 meter mark and drag it all the way down. This apex I did catch, same thing as turn 1, turn 11. You don't catch too much of it because there's a sausage curb here and it's kind of rough, but this is okay. This gets me set up for this next section here. And as I said with turn 1, same thing for turn 11 and 12. You can probably actually go a little deeper into the corner and then cut in and take a straighter exit out, essentially late apex. That may be preferable. That may be better for your setup or for your driving style. And it's something that I'm definitely going to be playing with just to see if there's a better way for me to do it. Because clearly I am missing some time here, but again, for race purposes, outside of just a general hot lap, you want to find what's going to be best over the course of, what is it, 27 laps this week, so, and try to make the most out of that, out of your tires for that. I wish we had better braking markers through this section, but so from this point forward, for the most part, it's about feel. There's not, from what I've seen, there's not a whole lot of good braking markers. So the most important thing is you want to get the car stopped, get it turned in. I try to aim to put the right sides right here next to the sausage curb and not track out too wide here. Just to cut off some of this, some of that pavement. But this is where it can get a little sketchy, because, and it happened to me here a bit. You can probably see that little flick of the steering wheel as I go through here. Had to catch it just a little bit right there. When you get on the power and the car is slowly working its way through that corner, the rear end will start to slide out. Um, it almost feels like a weight transfer thing, like the weight just shifts suddenly and tries to throw the car around. So again, that's one area to be really careful of, because it can lose a little bit of stability through there. But it'll get you set up for this run here. This is an odd corner. I have struggled with this corner as long as this track has been in existence, but pretty much, mentally you want to stay in the black, but the reality is you want to be pretty wide out here, because the most important apex is this one over here on the left. To get it turned in, clip that, and get the car prepared to accelerate out. Again, this is an easy off track to get right here, so just be mindful of that. It's okay to take this corner a little bit slow just to make sure you get set up, because this fast section here is a little bit, in my mind, is a little bit more important. You can go through here wide open, might change a bit when you're on old tires or in the Tour when we're on full fuel. To get through here and just kind of get close to these apexes, be mindful of the rear sliding. The downforce is pretty much at its limit here, and just prepare yourself for this last corner. Again, not a great braking marker here. It's kind of something you just develop a feel for, but it's really pretty much a quick jab at the brakes to get it turned and settled. Again, try to get it's hard to see in this car, but try to get your left sides on this red and white curb here. Suelio stays in 6th. I dropped to 5th, just to get that extra rotation from the engine braking, and then hammer down, go to 6th, and take off. And then for this last corner, I went a little too deep in here, but pretty much braking at the access road is right about where you want to get on them. Get it turned in, same thing, get those left sides real close to this orange curb, but not on it. You'll get launched to the moon otherwise. Get it turned in, get it on the gas, and there you go. There is the lap here at Circuit of the Americas. Alright, so there you have it. There's a breakdown of the lap here at Circuit of the Americas. As you saw, I was still a few tenths off of Suelio. I still have some work to do to find some speed here. A lot of it, I think, is just track time and getting reacclimated with a different car. Again, it had been almost a year since I've raced here in any sort of Formula One type of vehicle. So it's just going to take a little bit of practice for me to find that speed. And on that note, I wanted to cover that when I first loaded up the track and I first loaded in with the car and first ran up against Suelio's lap, I was about 2 seconds off of his pace and was a bit shocked since I have experience at this track. And I was trying to figure out where in the world was I losing all that time. Did a few more laps, kind of knocked the rust off a little bit, was able to get down to about a second off of Suelio, so that was certainly better, but still not quite where I needed to be, where I felt like I should be. And was just couldn't figure it out. I was running low 134-second laps and felt like I had this car running on the ragged edge, and was just confused as to how somebody could go a whole second faster. So I went out without comparing any lap times, drove probably about 10 or 15 laps, little 5-lap stints, and drove them at probably about 75-80% pace. Wasn't really looking for lap time. The biggest thing I was trying to learn by doing that was trying to check out the apexes, the lines, at a reasonable speed, but not so fast that I was going to be blowing corners left and right. So, and just get some laps under my belt. Again, it's been a while, so maybe I just needed to reacclimate to the track, reacclimate to the layout, spend some time working, and try to understand, maybe what could I be doing a little bit different. Once I did that, then I took another swing at trying to get close to Suelio's lap time. And this was a lot more helpful because I was able to, the first time I did it, I was so far off the pace that the ghost car disappeared on me and I couldn't see what he was doing. But after I spent that time working on it, I was able to watch the ghost car, keep it in sight, get a better idea of where he was braking and accelerating and what lines he was taking. Obviously I watched the tutorial video before all this just to see what he did. Tried to replicate it, didn't work until after I started, doing some slower laps to figure things out. And as you saw, there were some sections where, through the S's, for example, he goes full throttle through most of them, whereas I give it a little bit of a lift to try to make sure that I make it through there. And obviously there's some other areas where I'm losing some time, but I was able to get my pace down a little bit more to a more acceptable level. So then I looked at telemetry. I pulled up the telemetry file that comes with the driver setup pack. Loaded that up. I used Z1 and loaded that up in there, and then loaded up a telemetry lap that I recorded that was, about a second or so off of his pace, and tried to see, okay, where am I losing time? What inputs am I doing differently to that could be making such a big difference in time? And what I noticed, the biggest differences seemed to be that we would be braking at the same time, but I'd be braking too much, which seemed to happen in the first couple of corners or so, or in the last 2 or 3, 4 corners maybe, I was not braking. I was braking later than him and not braking as much. So the first couple of corners I was underdriving, and the last few corners I was overdriving. So, but that was really helpful to look at that telemetry and see, okay, these are some things I need to change. Maybe I need to back up my braking point here, or at least if I brake as late as I do, brake harder. The other thing that I did was somebody had posted in the iRacing Open Wheel Discord F1 chat group. They had posted the Mercedes track guide from last year that showed all the different corners, the approximate speed through those corners, and the gear that either Lewis or Valtteri would be using through said corner, which we covered during the breakdown lap. That was the reason why I selected the gears that I did for those corners, is because those are the gears that seem to equate to real life a little bit better. And as it happened, it made the car feel better for my driving style. So those are all different things that I sat down and did to try to find some extra speed here. And ultimately, it rewarded me with a time that was only a few tenths off of Suelio. So, and I don't expect to beat his lap every week. Last week was a good week for me. So, really, it's just a matter of getting in there, seeing what's different. If you're unfamiliar with the track, go run a few laps at a slower pace than race pace, just to reacclimate yourself with it, or kind of figure out some different lines and really get a feel for the apexes and everything else. And then go back at it and see if you can keep up with the ghost car, and see what the ghost car is doing, where it's braking, how it's cornering, and then try to replicate that as best as you can, or find sections of the track where maybe you're a little bit faster than the ghost car. And then ultimately over time it will lead to where you're more confident and can string together more of those good laps, so that you're able to better practice it. So anyway, a little bit longer ending to these videos, a little bit longer video overall probably, but hopefully this information is helpful to those of you out here who've been watching, and it gives you something to think about if you're struggling to get around this place and one of those people that doesn't like it because this track has so many off tracks and it's really difficult. And because eventually, like I said earlier on, if you can really nail down this place, it is an absolute blast to drive. I mean, fast corners, slow corners, tight corners, wide corners, multi-apex corners, elevation changes. Like, I mean, this track has it all. So it's every if you're a really into the art of driving, this track should be at the top of your list. So anyway, enough gushing about my home track. Again, I hope you guys enjoyed these videos. And again, if you do like this content, be sure to like the videos and subscribe to mine and the Majors Garage YouTube channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see y'all next week.